The night my father chose my brother over me, the weapon he used was my grandmother's recipe book. We were gathered at his retirement party at our family restaurant in San Diego. The dining room was packed with relatives I barely knew, all of them laughing and toasting. I thought we were celebrating Dad's 40 years in the restaurant business. I was wrong. My father, Robert Martinez, stood up and clinked his glass with a butter knife. The room went silent. "I want to thank you all for coming tonight," he said, his voice steady and proud. 40 years ago, my mother, Carmela Martinez, opened this restaurant with nothing but her recipes and her dreams. Tonight, I'm ready to pass that dream to the next generation. My heart started to pound. I looked at my older brother, Diego, sitting at the head table with his wife. He was smiling, but he looked nervous. Then my father reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a leather-bound book. It was small, worn at the edges, the pages yellowed. I knew that book. It was Abuela's recipe book, the one she'd written by hand, the one she'd used every single day in her kitchen. This restaurant, my father continued, needs someone who understands business, someone who can take it into the future. Diego has built a successful career in finance. He understands numbers, profit margins, sustainability. He walked over to Diego and placed the book in his hands. "The restaurant is yours, mijo. Make your abuela proud." The room erupted in applause. My relatives cheered. Diego stood up and hugged my father. My sister-in-law was crying happy tears. I just sat there, my hands frozen on my napkin. I felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. My father hadn't even looked at me. Not once. I'd worked in that restaurant every summer since I was 12. I'd spent every weekend of high school rolling tortillas and prepping vegetables. I'd learned every recipe in that book by heart because Abuela had taught me, not Diego. Diego had spent his summers at math camp and business seminars. He'd never wanted anything to do with the restaurant. He'd called it small time when he went off to UCLA. But I didn't say anything. I just picked up my purse, stood up, and walked out the side door into the warm San Diego night. No one even noticed I was gone. The applause was still going when the door closed behind me. Before I go any further, I want you to know where I'm watching from matters to me. Drop a comment below and tell me where you are. This story is for anyone who's ever been overlooked, underestimated, or erased by the people who were supposed to love them most. Growing up in San Diego as a Martinez meant something. Our family restaurant, Casa Carmela, had been in North Park for over 40 years. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't trendy. It was a small, family-run Mexican restaurant where locals came for breakfast burritos and homemade tamales. My grandmother, Carmela, had opened it in the early 80s with money she'd saved working as a housekeeper. She'd named it after herself, which my grandfather thought was too bold. She did it anyway. In our family there were 2 children. There was Diego, my older brother by 3 years, and there was me, Elena. Diego was the golden child from the moment he was born. He was smart, ambitious, and had my father's serious face. From the time he was little, my father groomed him for success. Private tutors for SAT prep, leadership camps, business club, mock trial. Diego was being built to be someone impressive, someone my father could brag about at family gatherings. Then there was me. I was the quiet one. I didn't like the pressure of my father's expectations. I liked the warm, flour-dusted chaos of my grandmother's kitchen. When I was 10, Abuela started letting me help her in the restaurant. While Diego was at soccer practice or debate club, I was in the back kitchen learning how to make conchas, pan dulce, and tres leches cake. My father hated it. "Elena, you're getting flour all over your school uniform," he'd say, standing in the kitchen doorway. He wasn't worried about my uniform. He was worried because baking wasn't impressive. He couldn't tell his friends, "Oh, Elena is training to be a pastry chef." It wasn't a real career to him. But Abuela, she was different. She saw what I was doing. She would stand beside me at the counter, her small hands guiding mine as I kneaded dough. "Mija," she'd say in Spanish, "your hands have magic. You feel the dough. You know when it's ready. That's a gift." She would smile, and it was a real smile, warm and full of pride. "You're not just making bread, you're making memories. You're making love you can taste." She was my person. She was the only one who saw me. When I was 16, I entered a local baking competition at the San Diego County Fair. I made Abuela's signature tres leches cake, but I added my own twist with a layer of cajeta and toasted coconut. I won second place. I came home with a blue ribbon and a $50 gift card to a kitchen supply store. I found my father in the restaurant office with my uncle. They were going over invoices. "Dad, look," I said, holding up the ribbon. "I won second place in the county fair baking competition." My father glanced at it. "Oh, that's nice, Elena." He turned back to my uncle. "Anyway, as I was saying, Diego got accepted into UCLA's business program." Full ride. My uncle looked at my ribbon with a polite smile. "Baking competition? That's cute. What are you going to do with that? Open a little cupcake stand." I felt my face get hot. "I want to go to culinary school, actually. I want to study pastry arts." My father finally looked at me. Really looked at me. "Culinary school? Elena, that's not a career. That's a hobby. You need something stable. Something real. Diego understands that. You should be more like your brother." I put the ribbon on the desk. Later that night, I found it in the trash can in the office. I took it to my room and pinned it to my bulletin board. My baking ribbons and certificates always ended up in my room. Diego's business awards were framed on the restaurant wall, right by the host stand. Abuela found me in my room later. She didn't say anything about the ribbon. She just sat on my bed and held my hand. "Your father," she said softly. "He loves you. But he's afraid. He thinks the only way to be safe in this world is to have money and a title. He doesn't understand that the best things in life, they come from the heart and the hands." She was my only advocate. She was the only person in my family who spoke my language. And then, when I was 19, she died. It was sudden, a stroke. She was in the restaurant kitchen making her morning batch of tortillas. She was just gone. The funeral was enormous. The entire neighborhood came. My father played the role of the grieving son perfectly. Diego gave a beautiful speech about legacy. I just felt numb. I felt like the kitchen had gone cold and would never be warm again. After the funeral, after all the casseroles and flowers stopped coming, the restaurant felt empty. And in that emptiness, my father changed. His grief didn't make him softer. It made him harder. It was like losing his mother terrified him, and he grabbed onto the only thing he knew, Diego's success. He poured everything into Diego. All his attention, all his pride, all his hope. It was like he had to prove to himself, to the neighborhood, that the Martinez family was still successful even without Carmela. I was still there. I still worked in the restaurant, still made Abuela's recipes, still showed up every weekend. But my father looked at me like I was a problem he didn't know how to solve. My only advocate had vanished, and I was left alone with a father who couldn't see me and a brother who didn't care to look. After Abuela died, I threw myself into the restaurant. I worked the morning shift before my classes at San Diego State. I'd studied business because my father insisted, but my heart wasn't in it. My heart was in the kitchen, in the back where I'd spent years with Abuela. I started updating some of her recipes, making them a little lighter, a little more modern. I added new items to the dessert menu. Customers loved them. The tres leches cake with my cajeta twist became our best seller. My father barely noticed. Diego graduated from UCLA and got a high-paying job at a financial consulting firm in Los Angeles. My father was ecstatic. "This is it," he'd say to anyone who would listen. "This is what success looks like." He drove up to LA every month to have dinner with Diego and his wife, Vanessa. He'd come back and talk about Diego's condo, Diego's car, Diego's year-end bonus. I graduated from San Diego State with a degree I didn't want. I got a job doing administrative work at a real estate office because my father said I needed real work experience. But every evening, every weekend, I was in the restaurant kitchen. I worked for free. I just wanted to be there, to keep Abuela's legacy alive. One night, I was in the kitchen with my father. I'd just finished a batch of conchas that had turned out perfectly. "Dad," I said, "I've been thinking. I want to expand the dessert menu. Maybe add a weekend brunch. We could do special pastry baskets, churro flights, things like that. I have a whole plan." He was counting the register. He didn't look up. "Elena, we're a family restaurant. We're not a trendy brunch spot. We don't need gimmicks." "It's not a gimmick, Dad. It's evolution." Abuela always said. "Your Abuela," he interrupted, his voice sharp, "built this place on consistency, on tradition, not on your little experiments." "These aren't experiments. These are her recipes. I'm just updating them." He finally looked at me. You're playing in a kitchen. That's all you've ever done. Diego has a real career. You need to figure out what you're going to do with your life. I was 24 years old. I'd been working in that restaurant for over a decade. And my father still saw me as a child playing with flour. Then came the phone call. My father was retiring. After 40 years, he was ready to step back. He wanted to have a big party, a celebration, a passing of the torch. I assumed he'd hire a manager or maybe even sell the restaurant. I never imagined he'd give it away. The retirement party was my father's idea. He wanted it to be big, to show the neighborhood what the Martinez family had built. He invited everyone. Old customers, suppliers, relatives from Arizona and Texas, even Diego's colleagues from Los Angeles. The restaurant was packed. There were mariachis, a taco bar, a champagne tower. I'd spent the entire week preparing. I'd made every dessert myself. Conchas, pan dulce, tres leches, cake, flan, churros. I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted my father to see what I could do. I wore Abuela's apron, the one with the embroidered flowers. I thought maybe, just maybe, he'd finally see me. Diego and Vanessa arrived late. They swept in like celebrities. Diego in an expensive suit, Vanessa in designer heels. People crowded around them. How's LA? How's the finance world? We're so proud of you, Diego. I stayed in the kitchen, arranging desserts on trays. Then my father called everyone to attention. He stood in the middle of the dining room, holding a glass of champagne. Thank you all for coming, he said. This restaurant, Casa Carmela, is my mother's legacy. It's been my honor to keep it alive for 40 years. But I'm old now. He laughed, and everyone laughed with him. It's time to pass this to the next generation. I felt my heart start to race. I wiped my hands on the apron and stepped out of the kitchen. My father's eyes swept the room, and for just a second, they landed on me. Then they moved past me to Diego. This restaurant needs someone with business sense, my father said. Someone who understands the market, who can grow this place, who can make it profitable. Diego has built a career on smart investments and strategic thinking. He's going to take Casa Carmela into the future. He pulled out Abuela's recipe book from his jacket. I recognized it immediately. The leather cover, the hand-sewn binding, the pages stained with years of cooking. My father held it up like a trophy. This is your Abuela's heart, he said. Every recipe she ever made is in here. Diego, this is yours now. The restaurant is yours. Make us proud. He walked over to Diego and handed him the book. Diego took it, looking stunned. Vanessa squealed and clapped. The room exploded with applause. People were crying. My uncle was shouting, "Felicidades!" The mariachis started playing. I stood there in Abuela's apron, covered in flour from a week of baking, and I watched my father give away my entire life to my brother. Diego, who'd never wanted the restaurant. Diego, who'd called it small time. Diego, who didn't know the difference between masa harina and all-purpose flour. My father still hadn't looked at me. No one had looked at me. They were all crowded around Diego, congratulating him, taking pictures. I reached behind my back and untied Abuela's apron. I folded it carefully and set it on the counter. Then I picked up my purse and walked out the back door into the alley. I heard the applause swell as the door closed. They were celebrating. My father had just erased me, and they were celebrating. I got in my car. I sat there for a full 10 minutes. I couldn't move. I kept seeing my father's face, the pride in his eyes when he looked at Diego. The same eyes that had looked past me my entire life. I started the car and drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just drove. The tears came hard. I was gasping, ugly crying in my car. I drove north on the 5, no destination. I kept hearing my father's voice. Diego has built a career, someone who understands business. Make us proud. What about me? What about the 12 years I'd spent in that kitchen? What about every weekend, every holiday, every morning shift? What about Abuela teaching me, choosing me, trusting me with her recipes? My gas light came on somewhere near Oceanside. I pulled into a rest stop and just sat there in the dark parking lot. I was 24 years old and I had nowhere to go. I'd been living in a tiny studio apartment in City Heights, working my administrative job, and spending every spare moment at the restaurant. I had maybe $800 in my savings account. I had a useless business degree. And I had no family. I thought about my mother's sister, my tia Sofia. She lived in Chula Vista. We weren't close, but she was family. I started the car and drove south. It was past midnight when I pulled up to her house. I sat in the car for a long time before I finally got out and rang the doorbell. It took a few minutes. The porch light came on. The door opened. Tia Sofia stood there in her bathrobe, her hair in rollers. "Elena," she said, confused. "What are you doing here? Do you know what time it is?" "Tia," I said, and my voice cracked. "Dad gave Diego the restaurant. He gave him Abuela's recipe book. I don't have anywhere to go. Can I just sleep on your couch tonight? Just tonight?" She stared at me. Her face didn't soften. "Elena, you're 24 years old. Your father made a business decision. Diego has an MBA. He has connections. That restaurant needs someone who knows how to run a real business. But I know the food. I know Abuela's recipes. I've been working there since I was 12. Working there as what? A baker?" She said it like it was a dirty word. "Elena, your father is right. You've been playing in a kitchen for years. It's time to grow up. Diego is going to make that restaurant successful. You should be happy for him. Tia, please. I think you should go home and think about your choices," she said. "Figure out what you're going to do with your life. Stop blaming other people for your problems." She closed the door. I heard the deadbolt click. I stood there on her porch, the same porch where I'd played as a child, where Abuela used to sit with me and tell me stories. That click of the lock was final. My father had pushed me out. My aunt had locked the door behind me. I was completely alone. I went back to my car. I drove to my studio apartment. It was a tiny place, barely 300 square feet, in a building that smelled like mildew. I sat on my bed and looked around. The walls were bare. I had a hot plate, a microwave, a twin bed. This was my life. But as I sat there in the dark, something shifted. The crying stopped. The shaking stopped. The humiliation turned into something else. It was anger, but it was quiet. It was cold. I wasn't just sad anymore. I was free. I had no one left to please. I had no one left to disappoint. I had no father to call. I had no family restaurant to show up to every weekend. I was nothing to them, which meant I could be anything I wanted for myself. The next morning, I woke up with a clear head. I called in sick to my real estate job. Then I spent the entire day writing. I wrote down every single recipe I could remember from Abuela's book. Every measurement, every technique, every secret she'd ever told me. I wrote until my hand cramped. I filled an entire notebook. Then I made a decision. I wasn't going to fight my father. I wasn't going to beg Diego to let me work in the restaurant. I was going to build my own life. But I had a problem. I had $800, a useless degree, and no kitchen. I spent the next week applying to every bakery, cafe, and restaurant in San Diego. I finally got a call back from a small artisan bakery in North Park called Rise and Shine. They needed someone for the graveyard shift. 4 nights a week, midnight to 8 a.m. The pay was $12 an hour. I took it. The first night, I showed up at midnight. The bakery was small, just one large kitchen with industrial ovens and mixers. There were 3 other bakers on the shift. They barely looked at me. "You're on bread duty," the shift lead said. "Mix, knead, proof, bake. We need 200 loaves by 7 a.m. I worked. I mixed dough until my arms ached. I kneaded until my hands were raw. The kitchen was hot and loud and smelled like yeast. By the time the sun came up, I'd made 180 loaves. It wasn't enough. The shift lead shook his head. "You're slow. You need to pick up the pace or you're done." I came back the next night and made 220 loaves. The night after that, 250. I learned the rhythm. I learned to move fast, to trust my hands, and in between the bread, when I had a few spare minutes, I practiced. I made conchas, pan dulce, churros. I used the leftover dough. The other bakers started to notice. "What are you making?" one of them asked, watching me pipe the sugar topping onto a concha. "Mexican sweet bread," I said. "My grandmother's recipe." He tasted one. His eyes went wide. "This is incredible. Where did you learn this?" "My family's restaurant." "Which one?" He hesitated. "Casa Carmela." "No way. I love that place." "You're Carmela's granddaughter?" I nodded. He looked at me with new respect. Word spread. The other bakers started asking me to teach them. The bakery owner, a woman named Patricia, came in one morning and tried my conchas. "Elena," she said, "how would you feel about adding these to our menu? I'll pay you extra per batch." I said yes. Suddenly I wasn't just on bread duty. I was making conchas, pan dulce, tres leches cake. Rise and Shine started offering a Latin pastry box every Saturday. It sold out in an hour. Patricia gave me a raise, $15 an hour, but I was still broke. I was still living in my tiny studio. I was still working graveyard shifts and sleeping through the day. I was surviving, but I wasn't building anything. I needed more. I needed my own thing. One Saturday, I was walking through the Little Italy Mercato, a farmer's market. I wasn't buying anything. I couldn't afford it. I was just walking, looking at the vendors, feeling sorry for myself. Then I saw a small empty booth space. There was a sign. Vendor space available. $50 per Saturday. $50. I had that. Barely. I walked over to the market coordinator and asked about it. "It's yours if you want it," she said. "But you need to commit to at least 4 weeks." $200. It was almost all of my savings. If this didn't work, I'd be completely broke. But I thought about Abuela. I thought about her opening Casa Carmela with her housekeeper savings. I thought about her embroidered apron. I said yes. The next Saturday, I showed up with a folding table, a hand-painted sign that said Elena's Pastries, and 6 dozen conchas I'd made in my apartment kitchen, using my hot plate and a toaster oven. It was pathetic. The vendors next to me had professional displays and credit card readers. I had a cardboard box and a cash jar. For 2 hours, no one stopped. People walked past. They looked at me with pity. I was ready to pack up and go home. Then a woman stopped. She was older, maybe in her 60s, with kind eyes. "Are those conchas?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. Fresh this morning." "How much?" $2 each. She bought 4. She took a bite of one right there. Her eyes closed. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Where did you learn to make these?" "My grandmother. She owned Casa Carmela." "Carmela Martinez?" I knew her. "These taste just like hers. Maybe even better." She bought the rest of my conchas. All 6 dozen. Then she pulled out her phone and took a picture of my sign. "I'm posting this," she said. "My friends are going to want to know about you." The next Saturday, I sold out in 90 minutes. The Saturday after that, 45 minutes. By my 4th week, I had a line. People were pre-ordering. I was making $500 a Saturday. I quit my real estate job. I picked up more shifts at Rise and Shine. Every spare dollar went into ingredients, into better packaging, into growing. Then one Saturday morning, a man in an expensive suit stopped at my booth. He was tall, in his 50s, with silver hair. He bought a churro and a slice of tres leches cake. He ate them slowly, methodically, like he was analyzing them. Then he looked at me. "Did you make these?" he asked. "Yes, sir." "Who taught you?" "My grandmother." He pulled out a business card. "I'm Marcus Chen. I'm a food writer for San Diego Magazine. I'm working on a piece about the city's best undiscovered food vendors. I'd like to feature you." My heart stopped. "Feature me?" "Yes. Can I interview you?" I said yes. 2 weeks later, the article came out. The Pastry Prodigy of Little Italy. How Elena Martinez is bringing her grandmother's legacy to life. It was a full-page spread with photos of my conchas, my booth, and me. The article called my pastries transcendent and a love letter to San Diego's Mexican food heritage. That Saturday, my line wrapped around the block. I sold out in 20 minutes. I had 50 orders I couldn't fill. Marcus came back. "Elena," he said, "you need a brick-and-mortar location. You're ready." I laughed. "I can barely afford my booth fee. Then find an investor. Or a partner. Because people are going to forget about you if you stay small." He was right. I knew he was right. But I had no money, no connections, no business plan. I was just a girl with a folding table and my grandmother's recipes. Then I got a phone call, a woman's voice. "Is this Elena Martinez?" "Yes. My name is Diane Foster. I own a small cafe in South Park. I'm retiring, and I'm looking to sell. I read the article about you. I think you'd be perfect for this space. Would you be interested in meeting?" I met Diane the next day. Her cafe was small, maybe 800 square feet, with a tiny kitchen and seating for 20. It was cozy, bright, with big windows and exposed brick. It was perfect. I'm asking $65,000 for the equipment and the lease transfer, Diane said. The rent is $2,000 a month. I had $3,000 in my savings. I couldn't even afford the first month's rent. I can't, I said, my voice breaking. I don't have that kind of money. Diane looked at me. She'd read the article. She knew my story. What if I financed it? She said. You pay me back over 5 years. No interest. I just want to see this place stay a bakery. I want to see someone with passion take it over. I couldn't believe it. Why would you do that? Because 30 years ago, someone did it for me, she said. And because I believe in you. I signed the papers that week. I gave Diane my $3,000 as a down payment. I moved into the cafe that same day. Literally moved in. I couldn't afford my studio anymore, so I slept on an air mattress in the back storage room. The cafe had a shower in the bathroom. I lived there for 6 months, working 18-hour days, baking every pastry I knew how to make, building a menu. I named it Carmela's Kitchen. I hung a photo of Abuela behind the counter. I painted the walls her favorite color, a warm terracotta. I made the cafe feel like her restaurant had felt. Warm, welcoming, full of love. For the first 3 months, I barely broke even. Then Marcus wrote another article. Then food bloggers started coming. Then influencers posted photos of my conchas on Instagram. Then the line started forming outside my door every morning. By the end of the first year, I hired 2 employees. By the end of the second year, I opened a second location in La Jolla. By the end of the third year, I had 4 locations across San Diego. By the fourth year, I was approached by a regional grocery chain. They wanted to carry my pastries in 50 stores. The contract was worth $500,000. I was 29 years old. I was the owner of Carmela's Kitchen, a rapidly growing bakery brand. I'd been featured in national food magazines. I'd won awards. I'd built something real, something profitable, something I was proud of, and my family had no idea. In 4 years, I'd never once reached out to them. I'd never checked on my father. I'd never asked how Diego was running the restaurant. It was like a door in my mind had closed and locked. They didn't exist to me. My father, my brother, my aunt, they were somewhere in San Diego, living their lives, and I was living mine. Then one morning, I was at my original South Park location, the one where I'd slept on an air mattress and learned to run a business. I was in the kitchen, testing a new recipe. My phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Elena? A woman's voice. Elena, it's Vanessa, my brother's wife. I hadn't heard her voice in 4 years. Vanessa, I said carefully. What's going on? Her voice was shaking. I didn't know how else to reach you. Elena, I just drove past your bakery, the one in Little Italy. I saw the sign, Carmela's Kitchen. Is that you? My blood went cold. How did you find me? I Googled you. Elena, there are articles. Your bakery is everywhere. You have 4 locations? You're in grocery stores? Why didn't you tell us? I didn't answer. I just waited. Elena, Vanessa said, and her voice dropped. Diego closed Casa Carmela. Last month, we went bankrupt. I felt nothing. Just a cold, empty nothing. What happened? He tried to modernize it. He changed the menu. He fired all the old staff. He rebranded it as a fusion concept. Customers hated it. The neighborhood turned on us. We lost everything. We lost the restaurant. We lost our savings. We lost our house. Diego and I were separated. He's living with your dad. Your dad's house is in foreclosure. I closed my eyes. I saw my father's face at the retirement party, the pride when he handed Diego the recipe book. I saw Diego's smug smile. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because your dad. Elena, he's been trying to find you. He wants to see you. He needs to talk to you. I don't think so, I said. Elena, please. He made a mistake. He knows that now. He just wants to apologize. Tell him I'm busy, I said. Tell him I'm building something. Tell him I'm making Abuela proud. I hung up. I stood in my kitchen, surrounded by the smell of fresh-baked conchas, and I felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, just peace. But the story wasn't over. 2 days later, I was at my La Jolla location for a morning meeting. My manager came into the office. "Elena, there's someone here to see you. He says he's your father." My hands went cold. "Tell him I'm not available. He says he'll wait." I looked out the office window. My father was sitting at one of the small tables by the window. He looked smaller than I remembered. His hair was completely gray. His shoulders were hunched. He was holding something in his lap. I could see it from where I stood. It was Abuela's recipe book. I took a deep breath. I walked out of the office and across the cafe. Customers were eating my pastries, laughing, taking photos. The air smelled like cinnamon and butter. This was my place, my world. He was a visitor here. I sat down across from him. He looked up. His eyes were red. "Elena," he said. My name came out like a sob. I didn't say anything. I just waited. "I made a terrible mistake," he said. His voice was shaking. "I gave Diego the restaurant because I thought he was smarter. I thought he understood business better. I thought you were just playing. I didn't see what you were building. I didn't see you at all." I looked at him. This man who'd raised me. This man who'd looked past me my entire life. "Why are you here?" I asked. My voice was calm. Flat. "Diego destroyed everything," he said. "The restaurant is gone. Your Abuela's legacy is gone. And it's my fault. I gave it to the wrong child." He slid the recipe book across the table. "This is yours. It should have always been yours. Abuela left it for you. I was just too proud to see it." I looked at the book. The leather was more worn now. There were stains on the cover, coffee or grease. I thought about all the times I'd watched Abuela write in it, her small handwriting filling the pages. I thought about her hands guiding mine in the kitchen. "I don't need it," I said. My father's face crumpled. "Elena, please. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm asking for it anyway. I'm your father. Family is supposed to forgive. Family is supposed to see you," I said quietly. "Family is supposed to believe in you. You had 12 years to see me, Dad. 12 years of me showing up, learning, working, trying to prove I was good enough. You never looked. Not once." "I know," he whispered. "I know. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I stood up. I picked up the recipe book. I held it for a moment, feeling the weight of it. Then I opened it. The pages were just as I remembered. Abuela's handwriting, her notes in Spanish, little sketches of piping techniques. But I didn't need these recipes anymore. I'd written my own. I'd taken what she taught me and made it my own. "You can keep this," I said, handing it back to him. "Or give it to Diego. Or throw it away. I don't need it. I've spent 4 years rebuilding Abuela's legacy in my own way. I'm making her proud. Not because I'm trying to prove anything to you, but because she believed in me when no one else did." My father reached for my hand. "Elena, please, let me make this right." I pulled my hand back. "You can't make it right, Dad. You can only move forward. And so can I." I looked at him. At this man who'd once been my entire world. "I hope you find peace." "I really do. But I can't be part of your redemption story. I'm too busy writing my own." I walked away. I heard him say my name, but I didn't turn around. I went back into my office, closed the door, and sat down at my desk. My hands were shaking, but I wasn't crying. I was just breathing. That night, I stood in the kitchen of my South Park location after closing. I was alone, surrounded by clean counters and the smell of flour. I thought about Abuela. I thought about her opening Casa Carmela, with nothing but her savings and her recipes. I thought about her hands teaching mine to knead, to fold, to shape. I thought about the way she'd smile when I got something right. "I did it, Abuela," I whispered to the empty kitchen. "I built something. I made you proud. I didn't build Carmela's kitchen for revenge. I didn't do it to prove my father wrong or to show Diego what he'd missed. I did it because Abuela had planted something in me. She'd taught me that food is love, that creating something with your hands is sacred, that a recipe is more than ingredients on a page. It's a story. It's a legacy. It's a gift. My father gave Diego a book and a business. I gave myself a life. And in the end, that was the only revenge I needed. Living well, living free, living in a kitchen that smelled like Abuela's love and my own hard work. I'm Elena Martinez. I'm the owner of Carmela's kitchen. And I built it myself, one concha at a time. If you've ever been told you're not good enough, If you've ever been overlooked, if you've ever been erased by the people who were supposed to love you, I want you to know something. You don't need their approval to build something beautiful. You just need to believe in yourself the way someone once believed in you. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. And remember, the best revenge isn't winning their approval, it's realizing you never needed it in the first place.